I'm Abigail Galván. Welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly.
Ci riempie di gioia.
Listening to this gospel today during the Jubilee of Families, children, grandparents, and the elderly fills us with joy.
The Holy Father highlights the importance of marriage and the need for strong families in society. We take you to the Jubilee of Families at the Vatican.
The primary ways in which we train our grandparents is via our seminar.
An organization dedicated to helping grandparents pass on the faith shares the unique blessings grandparents bestow on families and society.
Fidelity to God, our fidelity to our spouses and to our children in marriage, and fidelity to our country.
And a grassroots movement aimed at fostering stronger faith, families, and patriotism. We break down the ways you can take part in Fidelity Month.
As soon as we were born, we needed others in order to live. Left to ourselves, we would not have survived.
Leo XIV emphasizing the role of family relationships during his homily on Sunday, as thousands of pilgrims gathered in St. Peter's Square for the Jubilee of Families, children, grandparents, and the elderly. Speaking to families from nearly 120 countries, the Holy Father highlighted the need for relationship, human kindness, and mutual care for one another. He also emphasized the importance of marriage for the betterment of society and to grow closer to God.
Let us not forget, families are the cradle of the future of humanity. The Church tells us that today's world needs the marriage covenant in order to know and accept God's love and to defeat, thanks to its unifying and reconciling power, the forces that break down relationships and societies.
Events were held throughout the weekend in several areas of Rome for this special Jubilee. Zofia Zubik was on the ground speaking with families throughout the Jubilee. They shared their joy for the opportunity to come together as family and as church.
Family for me is everything.
Families from all over the world flooded Rome over the weekend to celebrate the Jubilee of Families, children, grandparents and elderly.
In
the family, faith is handed on together with life, generation after generation.
During the Jubilee Mass on Sunday, Pope Leo XIV reminded the faithful that families are the cradle of the future of humanity.
It is shared like food at the family table, and like the love in our hearts. In this way, families become privileged places in which to encounter Jesus, who loves us and desires our good, always.
Celebrations kicked off on Friday with pilgrimages to the Holy Doors and numerous cultural, artistic and spiritual activities in various Roman piazzas and churches.
It's very good to be here with a family from all over the world.
This was an occasion for families to celebrate shared values of faith and community.
Just seeing all these young families around in an ancient city, especially considering, for me, I think for society itself, the family is the cornerstone, it's the basis of what makes a society.
They made me who I am, actually. Everything I know about life, I get from my parents.
Many faithful gathered at the Church of Trinità dei Monti to venerate the relics of Saint Thérèse of Lisieux and her parents, Louis and Zélie Martin.
So I have a veneration of really a great example of family, so they can pray together as a family with a Martin family. Having the family which is really like a small church, we all know this.
This intimate and personal gathering offered French pilgrims an opportunity to place their handwritten petitions and prayers at the feet of their beloved saints' relics, entrusting their families to their intercession.
Thérèse is a part of my family because my great-grandparent and my grandmother had icons of her everywhere, literally everywhere. Thérèse is very important for me. Everything is connected with my family, with my life.
This rare occasion of being so close to a canonized family created a heartfelt moment for families to receive blessings from the priests, pray the rosary and receive the sacrament of confession. Ben and Veronique lead an organization based in France called Love and Truth, which helps married couples grow in spirituality and practicality, improving their overall family life.
The church wants to tell every family that they are very welcome, even if you are hurt in your family, even for people who are divorced, or they are very welcome in the church.
Happy couple makes happy kids. The love of the couple, if it's strong, can radiate outside, within the family.
For children, family is everything. It's all they know. They explained in their own words why family is important to them.
La famiglia è importante perché ti procura tutte le cose.
Per me la famiglia è importante perché per me c'è sempre e pure se alcune volte mi sgrida gli voglio bene.
La famiglia per me è importante, come hanno detto tutti gli altri, perché mi fornisce anche una casa dove vivere, mi dà del cibo, mi dà molto amore e posso essere sicura con loro.
This Jubilee served as a reminder that the family is the foundation on which society is built upon. As families return home, they return with a renewed sense of what it means to be a family and the fundamental purpose it serves in building a future. In Rome, Zofia Czubak, EWTN Pro-Life Weekly.
EWTN is covering 2025 Jubilee events throughout the entire year. Be sure to tune in for the latest coverage. You can also follow our sister news organization, the Catholic News Agency, and read in-depth articles on the National Catholic Register. It is beautiful to see a celebration of families, a source of wisdom and tradition for many families, and our society as a whole are our seniors. The World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly will be held a little more than a month from now on July 27th. That is near the feast of Jesus' grandparents, Saints Joachim and Anne. Established by Pope Francis in 2021, the day recognizes the contributions of our seniors and aims to foster respect and understanding between generations. This year's theme, Blessed are those who have not lost hope, is intended to urge Catholics to reflect on how the presence of grandparents and the elderly can become a sign of hope in every family and church community. The World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly came about in part after eager campaign efforts by Catholic Grandparents Association. These types of organizations are vital in raising awareness of the care, celebration, and protection of our elders. Cardinal Wilfred Napier of the Archdiocese of Durban in South Africa says we need more organizations focused on our seniors. He sat down with EWTN Rome correspondent Colin Flynn. Take a look.
In some countries and societies as well, you know, the youth are pushed and the youth are always celebrated, which is great, but then the elderly can feel overlooked, forgotten, invisible.
Right.
And now with some countries pushing for euthanasia, they're saying, what, is this the answer for us, that we feel like we're a burden and we're in the way and that this is an easy solution?
Maybe that's where grandparents should be tackling, the Grandparents Association should be starting to tackle that euthanasia question head on. You're talking about killing me. It's not just about killing grandparents or the aged. Ultimately it's going to be me that's going to be put under pressure too.
What can we do more to celebrate and make them feel valuable or elderly in society?
I think the way that the Grandparents Association, just even having that as an association and people coming together and supporting each other, I think that's a good starting point. Out of that, I would hope that other movements would be developed, like how do grandparents reintegrate into families where there's been a split up and so on.
A nonprofit called Grandly is another organization that is helping to build bridges between seniors and youth. Abigail Galván de Abuchar, co-founder of Grandly, joins us now to talk about the vital role grandparents play in families. Billy, thank you for being with us today. First, can you share what you hear from grandparents? What do they tell you about their role in their families, and what challenges do they share?
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is an excellent question. A lot of the things that I hear when I'm talking to grandparents and working with them in this organization is honestly hopelessness. A lot of grandparents feel hopeless for the way that they're seeing their grandchildren be raised or the world that they're seeing their grandchildren live in. And they feel frustrated not knowing what to do. So that is like the main thing that we try to tackle, in our mission in Grandly, is to give grandparents hope, to help them bridge that generational gap between how, they were raised and how youth culture is moving right now. And we also help them in praying thinking and acting strategically for the welfare of their grandchildren. So for me, one of the most exciting things I've seen in my work is, having grandparents walking hopeless into one of our, seminars or before reading our book, and then having hope and a very clear strategy and tools, for what they can do for the spiritual welfare of their grandchildren.
That's incredible to hear. And can you tell us how many grandparents are part of Grandly? And can you tell us a little bit about the work that Grandly does with them?
Yes, for sure. Well, we are a nonprofit that really started out of a youth work organization when we said, what if we recruited 10,000 grandparents, all of whom are over the age of 55, and we train them with the principles of youth work? We really believe that grandparents are already in a key position with their grandchildren because they're loved, because they're trusted. So we just want to equip them with a little bit more to really impact that. So we currently believe that we're touching around 20,000 grandparents' lives. And our numbers, show that we have about an average of 5 grandchildren per grandparent. So our goal or our metrics really focus on how many youth we are reaching, like how many young people are being touched by the gospel, in this specific case, through their grandparents. So we really are talking about 100,000 grandchildren, and we continue to want to grow that. And some of the primary ways in which we train our grandparents is via our seminar. We have a seminar called the Do It Grandly Seminar, which grandparents can just take by themselves at their own pace. They can find the seminar on our website, or we are also helping parishes across the United States and in other countries to host seminars for their grandparents locally.
I love how you're tying the outcomes between grandparents and grandchildren, crossing that generational divide. What are some of the outcomes after a grandfather or grandmother takes your seminar? Like, what feedback are you getting?
Honestly, as I said, the main one for me is just walking in hopelessness and walking out saying there is something I can do. We really tell grandparents, what if the most important thing God wants you to do in your life is still in front of you? A lot of them are 60, 70, 80, plus years old. They feel like maybe they already did what they had to do. Maybe they already responded to, what God wanted them to do. But we say, what if the most important thing God wants you to do is still in front of you at age 85 or age 90, and that is passing on your faith to your grandchildren? So that just really brings a huge shift in how grandparents are thinking about their last years, or how they're investing their time, or how they're investing in their families, as well as, getting grandparents connected with other grandparents. I'm not a grandmother, so what we do is connect grandparents with others so they can continue to get that wisdom and that practical tools. So we as well host, discussion groups with grandparents from different places so they can keep working on what the strategy is. And a lot of our encouragement, as I love the piece and the things that were said before, like how can grandparents be a part of the family unit and really support their own children in raising their grandchildren. So we encourage as well a lot the working with the parents, obviously, of the grandchildren.
And now, do you guys have anything special planned for the World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly?
Well, we are focused mostly on continuing to host seminars in churches. We think that really is our biggest impact, working locally with different dioceses and really passing on our mission. So I think ideally, we want to be able to keep running those seminars throughout the summer, like right before the day of, grandparents, and right after that. I think that's the main way in which, our mission impacts both grandparents and their grandchildren.
Yes. Well, Billy, thank you so much for the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you would like to learn more about Grandly strategic grandparenting and access their resources, you can visit grandly.org. The Trump administration is rescinding Biden-era guidance requiring hospitals to perform emergency abortions. The directive was issued in 2022, weeks after Roe v. Wade was overturned. The Biden administration argued that hospitals, including ones in pro-life states, needed to provide emergency abortions under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, or EMTALA. But pro-life leaders say EMTALA already has a requirement to provide stabilizing care for both a pregnant woman and her unborn child. Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of SBA America, issued a statement saying, quote, Democrats have created confusion on this fact to justify their extremely unpopular agenda for all trimester abortion. In situations where every minute counts, their lies lead to delayed care and put women in needless, unacceptable danger. The Food and Drug Commissioner, Marty McCarty, says he will investigate the safety of the abortion pill. In a letter to Senator Josh Hawley, who has been outspoken advocate for reviewing regulations around mifepristone, McCarty said he is committed to conducting a review of mifepristone and working with the professional career scientists at the agency who review this data. No further details were given about the review.
What we're doing is saying that we're judging the sanctity and the dignity of human life by its utility, by its practicality. If something is looked upon as useless, if something is looked upon as no longer serving a need in society, well, darn it, we get rid of it. It's inconvenient. That's what Pope Francis called the throwaway culture.
Archbishop of New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan is warning state lawmakers to not pass an assisted suicide bill. The bill would allow terminally ill adults to request medication to end their life. Cardinal Dolan highlighted the hypocrisy of the bill as the state works to combat suicide rates among veterans, first responders, and among youth. The bill passed the state assembly and is being reviewed by the Senate Health Committee. A bill to legalize assisted suicide in Illinois was not called for a vote in the Senate before the legislature adjourned on June 1st. SB 1950 would allow adults with terminal illnesses who are given 6 months or less to live to obtain drugs to take their own lives. 2 doctors would have to approve the terminal diagnoses, and a pharmacist or mental health professional would have to determine a patient's mental health to take the deadly drugs. In his statement, Cardinal Blaise Cupich condemned the bill, writing in part, quote, "The data from places where assisted suicide is available are clear. Rates of all suicide went up after the passage of such legislation." And he warned that, according to the National Institute of Health, suicide contagion is a real risk to young people after exposure to suicide. Lawmakers in Illinois are also looking to require public universities to offer contraceptives and the abortion pill on campus. The state Senate and House passed a bill last Saturday after several months of amendments. The bill now heads to the governor's desk for signature, and if signed, could go into effect in the 2025 to 2026 school year. A win for the unborn in Missouri. Abortions in the state have been halted again, at least for now. The state Supreme Court ruled that District Judge Jerry Zhang applied the wrong standard of rulings in December and February that allowed abortions to resume in Missouri. Missouri had a pro-life trigger law that took effect after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The law only allowed abortion in cases of medical emergencies. State Attorney General Andrew Bailey asked Missouri's Supreme Court to step in and reinstate the restrictions, arguing that women, quote, would have no guarantee of health and safety because abortion facilities are functionally unregulated under state law in Missouri, unquote, and that there was no other way to protect them. District Judge Zhang ruled that she was allowing abortions to resume largely because advocates were likely to win the case eventually. The Missouri Supreme Court said it should first consider whether there would be harm from allowing abortions to resume. The state's highest court has ordered Zhang to vacate her earlier orders and reevaluate the case using the standards the court has laid out. A victory for pro-life pregnancy centers in the state of Vermont. In 2023, law that prohibited pregnancy centers from advertising their services has been amended. Pregnancy centers face up to $10,000 in fines for advertising. Several pro-life organizations filed a lawsuit against the state, arguing that it was unconstitutionally restricting free speech. Abortion is legal in Vermont throughout all stages of pregnancy. Coming up, fidelity to God, family, and country. How you can take part in the quickly growing movement that hopes to unite our country and strengthen our communities. Stay with us. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Earlier in our broadcast, we brought you the celebration of the Jubilee of Families at the Vatican. Well, another celebration of families is slowly growing here in the U.S., a grassroots initiative called Fidelity Month. The movement aims to ignite a recommitment to God and our families, as well as to our communities and our nation. Princeton professor Robert George, who created the idea, says the hope is to heal division and restore unity in our nation. Professor George visited me in our Washington, D.C. studios to share more about Fidelity Month and ways you can participate. Take a look. Professor George, it's such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So you started this thing called Fidelity Month. Can you tell us what it is and what was the inspiration behind it?
Yes, well, back in the spring of 2023, the early spring, I read a story in the Wall Street Journal talking about some new survey data, polling data, showing that the faith of Americans in the importance of religion, family, country, had all diminished very significantly over the past few years. Interestingly, the one area in which the faith of Americans increased was in the importance of money.
Oh my goodness.
Now, money is important. Yeah, no, we wouldn't want to be without money, and we want everybody to be prosperous. But material things are secondary to the things that really matter, like God and like marriage and children and like our communities. So this alarmed me because, of course, faith in God, fidelity to spouses and families, and patriotism and love of country and community have always been the glue that held Americans together. They are really the sources of our strength and unity as a nation. After all, we're not a nation based on common race or common ethnicity or ancestry or even a common religious denomination or anything like that. We're many different races, many different ethnicities from all over the world, many different faiths, Christian, Jewish, Protestant, Catholic, Eastern religions, and so forth. So if we're going to be bound together, if we're going to have unity and strength as a people, it's got to be in some common commitments. Now, first, of course, are the commitments that we all have as Americans to our Constitution, to our system of government, to our Republican civic order. But that's not enough. By itself, that's too thin. Americans have always relied on more than that, and that is across the races, across the ethnicities, across the religions, belief in the importance of God. In God we trust, our national motto. One nation under God in our Pledge of Allegiance. Number two, again, whether you're black or white, male or female, Protestant, Catholic, we've all shared a belief in the importance of fidelity to spouses, in marriage, to the family, to our children.
Now, Professor George, you mentioned this decline in these beliefs. How have you seen that play out in our society? And I know you're a professor at Princeton. Have you seen that play out in your students as well?
I've seen over the years an increasing secularization, a kind of inversion of values where people are valuing wealth and power and influence and prestige and status instead of focusing on faith and family and honor and integrity, beauty, knowledge, the things that really matter because they're not mere means to other ends, the way wealth and power and influence are means to other ends. These are the things that are ends in themselves. And of course, we've all seen the terrible decline in the family. So many broken families, families failing to form. And we've seen the social consequences and the personal costs that children in particular pay when families fail to form or when families dissolve. So part of the Fidelity Month effort is to restore the integrity of our society by restoring faith, by restoring the institution of the family, by reviving our understanding of what really matters, more than money, more than power, more than influence, and that is faith, family, love of country and community, integrity, honesty, decency, the things that are not just means to other ends.
That's incredible. And now, Professor George, you first launched this initiative in 2023.
That's
what
right.
have been the fruits of it thus far?
Well, interesting. I launched this initiative on social media. It's purely a grassroots effort. I have no fund of money. I have no staff or anything like that. But I just took to my social media accounts, my Twitter, as it was known then, my Twitter account, and my Facebook account, and I just said, I declare Fidelity June to be Fidelity Month. And several thousands of people joined in and said, yes, we want to be part of this. And the next thing we knew, people were reproducing the image on flags and banners and hats and things like that. And they were holding Fidelity Month events at churches and at other community gatherings. Even some political figures, mayors and legislators and others announced that they were going to recognize and honor Fidelity Month. Then the second year, we went from having, some thousands of people to having some tens of thousands of people.
That's incredible.
So now we're in our third year, and I'm hoping we'll move up to hundreds of thousands and then millions of people recognizing Fidelity Month. And more importantly, recognizing the principles that Fidelity Month is dedicated to.
So what are some practical ways in which our viewers could participate in Fidelity Month?
Number one, go to fidelitymonth.com, www.fidelitymonth.com, and we've got a whole list of things that you can do. Encourage your pastor, your priest, or your minister, your rabbi, whoever it is, to note Fidelity Month in a sermon. Talk about these principles of the importance of restoring fidelity to God, fidelity in marriage to spouses and families, fidelity to our country, living more than just for me.
Yes.
Help to organize an event at your church or at your community center. Have a speaker. We're not dictating anything, but have a speaker who's going to come to talk about patriotism. When was the last time we acknowledged the importance of patriotism? Talk about the importance of fidelity to God. My goodness, talk about the importance of fidelity in marriage. The whole structure of society depends on that, and it's being eroded. So we've got to get it back. How can I serve my spouse better? How can I make it less about me, and more about serving her? Or serving him, serving our children together. How can I be a better parent, a more attentive parent? Am I using these darn devices too much to babysit the kids? How about me spending time with the kids? That's what really matters.
Well, thank you so much, Professor George, for taking the initiative and getting this started.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
If you would like to learn more about Fidelity Month and get access to its resources, you can visit fidelitymonth.com. Pro-life advocates from across Oklahoma will fill the streets of Oklahoma City on Saturday, June 7th for the state's March for Life. The march will be followed by a rally on the steps of the Oklahoma Capitol building, with keynote speeches by Archbishop Paul Coakley from the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, State Governor Kevin Stitt, and U.S. Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. And in Tulsa, there will be a short procession downtown, followed by a live stream of the March for Life rally happening in Oklahoma City. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Be sure to like and follow us on our social media channels. You can find us on EWTN Pro-Life on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And sign up for our newsletter, The Pro-Life Pulse, EWTN.com/pro-life. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.